The priest asked, "Do you take him?" She paused, looked at me, then nodded at the man beside me. That moment, that single sharp second, cut deeper than anything I've ever felt in my life. People talk about heartbreak like it's an ache in your chest, like a dull pain that settles in and lingers. No, what I felt that day wasn't dull. It was like someone had taken a blade and sliced me clean open in front of an audience, dressed in their finest clothes, pretending not to see the blood. You know what the worst part was? I wasn't even supposed to be standing up there. I wasn't the best man. I wasn't a groomsman. I wasn't anybody who should have been that close to the altar. I was just a guest, shoved in the front row because she'd insisted. And yet somehow when the priest's voice echoed through the church, when everyone held their breath, her eyes didn't drift to the man in the tuxedo standing proudly at the altar. They drifted to me. And in that pause, God, that pause, I swear the whole church disappeared. For a heartbeat, it was just her and me. The same girl who used to lie beside me on warm summer nights, whispering about our future. The same girl who promised me once that we'd never lie to each other. The same girl who had been slipping through my fingers for months, though I hadn't wanted to admit it. And then she looked away, at him, and nodded. The room erupted in polite applause, the kind that's meant to mask discomfort, the kind that tries to stitch over cracks no one wants to acknowledge. My ears rang. I couldn't clap. My hands were fists, pressed against my thighs, my nails digging into my palms. And still, I couldn't move. You'd think that would have been the end of the story. That moment should have told me everything I needed to know. But no, that was just the beginning. Let me rewind. She and I weren't some whirlwind romance that lasted a few months before fizzling out. No, we were the kind of couple that builds history. Years, college parties that turned into study sessions, dinners with her family where her father would tease me about not knowing how to grill a steak properly. Late-night drives where she'd fall asleep with her head against the window while I sang softly to the radio. We had roots, real roots, and that's why it hurt so much. Because this wasn't a stranger. This was the girl who knew me better than anyone else. The girl I thought would one day stand beside me in a church like this, nodding at me. But things started to change slowly in ways you don't notice until it's too late. She started staying late at work. She laughed less around me. When she hugged me, it felt like her arms stopped halfway, like she was already pulling away. And then came the excuses, the vague explanations, the unanswered texts. I told myself it was stress. Everyone gets busy. Relationships go through phases. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. That's what love does. It makes you blind. Or maybe not blind. Maybe it makes you see the truth and ignore it anyway. And then I met him. The man beside me that day. Her colleague. The one she swore was just a friend. Just someone from the office. He was charming in the way that only someone who knows he's a threat can be. Confident. Easy smile. The kind of man who shakes your hand and makes you feel like you're already at a disadvantage. I remember the first time she introduced us. Her eyes lingered on him a little too long. And I felt it. That pull. That spark she used to have for me. I should have walked away then. I should have spared myself. But no. I stayed. I stayed because I thought love was enough to fight for. Even if I was the only one fighting. So when the wedding invitations came in the mail, I didn't think twice. I assumed she wanted me there out of respect, out of friendship, maybe even as proof that we were still fine. What I didn't realize was that I wasn't just invited. I was being used. The week before the wedding, she called me. "It would mean a lot if you came," she said. Her voice was soft, coaxing. "I want you there." And because I was still clinging to whatever scraps of us were left, I said yes. That's how I ended up in that church, sitting closer than I should have been. Watching her in white lace that should have been for me. The ceremony went on in a blur after her nod. Vows, rings, applause. People stood and cheered, and I sat there with a smile plastered on my face that felt more like a mask. She walked down the aisle on his arm, her veil trailing behind her, and all I could think was, how did I end up here? How did I become the ghost at her wedding? The reception was worse. Have you ever been forced to watch someone you love dance in someone else's arms, smiling the way she used to smile at you? It's like dying in slow motion. Every laugh, every stolen kiss, every toast felt like another nail in the coffin of what we used to be. At one point she found me. She actually walked over, her new husband off somewhere shaking hands. She leaned close, her perfume familiar, her smile too soft for a bride who had just said yes to another man. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. Her hand brushed mine for just a second, and in her eyes, I saw something, guilt maybe, or longing. Or maybe I was just imagining it, because I wanted so badly to believe there was still a piece of her that belonged to me. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't stop at the wedding aisle. It festers. It grows. That moment with the priest, her eyes locking on me, was the seed, and the weeks after the wedding, everything started to unravel. I got texts from her, late at night, casual, almost innocent. "How are you? Did you get home okay? Do you ever think about the old day?" And like a fool, I answered, "Not all the time, not every message, but enough. Enough to keep the door open." And every time her name lit up my phone, I asked myself, what game is she playing? Why marry him if she wasn't ready to let me go? That's where the story really begins. Not at the altar, not at the reception, but in the quiet moments after, when she was supposed to be starting her new life, and instead she kept reaching back for me. And I, like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, couldn't decide whether to jump or run. I'll never forget the first night after the wedding, when her name appeared on my phone again. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, still replaying that moment at the altar. The pause, the way her eyes darted to me, before nodding at him. And then, as if the universe wanted to rub salt into the wound, my phone buzzed. One message, just 4 words. "Are you still awake?" I should have ignored it. God knows I should have. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. So I typed back, "Yeah. Why?" She replied almost instantly. "I just wanted to hear from you. I can't sleep." That's how it started. Not with an affair, not with some grand declaration, but with a text. Late-night conversations that stretched longer than they should have. She'd tell me she couldn't stop thinking about the past, about the nights we spent lying under the stars or laughing at stupid sitcoms, and I, the fool, let myself sink back into that world. Her husband, her brand new husband, was sleeping beside her, and yet she was whispering into the phone with me. Do you know how twisted that felt? To realize that while everyone else thought their marriage had just begun, it was already rotting from the inside. The first time we met, after the wedding, it was under the flimsiest excuse. She said she wanted to catch up like we were just old friends reconnecting. She suggested a little cafe far from her neighborhood. When she walked in, she wasn't wearing her ring. She laughed when I pointed it out. "I left it at home," she said, twirling her coffee spoon. "It feels heavy sometimes." Heavy. That word stuck with me. She hadn't even been married a month, and already the ring weighed her down. We met again, and again, always in places no one would recognize her, always with the same dance. She'd tell me how much she missed me, how she thought about me at night, how sometimes when she was with him, her mind wandered back to me, and like an idiot, I listened. I let her words dig into me, even when I knew better. Because here's the thing, betrayal doesn't always end where you think it should. Sometimes it doubles back on itself. She had betrayed me by choosing him, but now she was betraying him by choosing me in secret. And I was caught in the middle, torn between wanting her back and wanting her to burn for what she did. The duality gnawed at me. Some nights, I'd lie awake imagining a future where she left him and came back to me, where that pause at the altar had turned into a different nod. One meant for me. Other nights, darker nights, I pictured standing in front of both of them, exposing her for what she was, watching her world crumble. And the more we met, the more reckless she became. She started leaving traces, texts that weren't deleted, calls made at odd hours, receipts left in her purse. He wasn't a fool. He began to notice. And when he did, he turned his suspicion on me. The first confrontation came at a company dinner, months after the wedding. I wasn't even supposed to be there, but a mutual friend had invited me. He saw me across the room, jaw tight, eyes sharp. He walked straight over, leaned in close, and whispered, "I know what you're doing." I played dumb, smiled, asked him what he meant. But his eyes didn't waver. "Stay away from her," he said. "She's my wife." The irony nearly made me laugh out loud. His wife. Sure, but his wife had been in my car just 2 nights before, kissing me like the vows she made to him didn't exist. The tension only grew from there. She didn't stop, If anything, she leaned harder into it. She told me things that made my stomach twist. How he wasn't what she thought. How the marriage felt hollow. How sometimes she wished she'd chosen differently. But here's the thing about people like her. They don't want to choose differently. They want to have both. They want the security of one man and the thrill of another. And I was tired of being her secret thrill. So I started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. At first it was just a plan to test her. To see how far she'd go. I asked her, point blank, if she would ever leave him. She hesitated. She said, maybe. One day, when the time is right. But her eyes flickered. And in that flicker, I saw the truth. She would never leave him. Not for me. Not for anyone. That's when the anger really set. All those years we'd built together. All those promises. All that history. She had thrown it away for him. And now she was stringing me along just to feed her ego. So I flipped the script. The next time she texted me, I didn't answer. The next time she asked to meet, I made an excuse. I wanted to see what she'd do when I wasn't at her beck and call. And sure enough, the messages got more desperate. Why are you ignoring me? Did I do something wrong? Please, I need to see you. That's when I knew I had power again. But power is only useful if you know how to wield it. So I waited. I let her dig her own grave, and she did. One night, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. She was crying, mascara smeared, ring nowhere to be seen. She told me they had fought, that he had accused her of still being in love with me, that she had denied it, but he didn't believe her. You have to tell him, she begged. Tell him there's nothing between us. I almost laughed in her face. Nothing between us. After months of stolen kisses and whispered confessions, after all the nights she'd come to me instead of him, nothing. That was the moment I decided. If she wanted to play both sides, I'd let her, but I'd also make sure she paid for it. So I told her I'd think about it. She left, calmer, believing she still had me under her spell, and I sat there staring at the door she'd just walked out of, knowing that the story was far from over. The truth has a funny way of surfacing, even when people do everything they can to bury it. And soon enough, the lies she thought she controlled were going to come crashing down on her. And this time I wasn't going to save her.